Hey everybody, we just did a fantastic interview with Danielle Jaffe, the founder of Whole Equals Healthy, for our The Health Connections podcast by TWC. It will be live next Thursday, a week from today. So in the meantime, you guys had submitted some great questions for Danielle, and she will be answering them for you today, and you will get to see it on her podcast page in a week as well. So here is Danielle, and I will read off the questions.
Hello.
Hi there. There she is. Isn't Skype fantastic?
I love Skype. It's amazing.
Thank you guys so much for submitting these questions, and we picked a few interesting ones, so if your question hasn't been answered, we will definitely get to it as well. But the first question was, what are some of the common ailments that you treat through your approach?
That's a great question because there's no one answer. It's a very broad spectrum of things that have people walk in the door. Anything from physical level issues like digestive complaints, hormonal imbalance, allergies, that sort of thing, headaches, to emotional level, anxiety, depression, sense of stuck, but also things like all being stuck in wanting more, you could say. For example, there's a large segment of my client population are what I call them masters of the universe types. They're highly successful in the world, fast-moving, fast-thinking, movers and shakers of our culture, and yet they come in the door often with something physically that has been the instigator to bring them in the door, but also saying, they recognize they're in a position to have anything they want, and yet they're looking for something more. They maybe feel spun out in their life or deal with anxiety, that sort of thing. And so they come in, we look at the whole picture, and then work together to find a plan to bring harmony back and focus and a life of meaning and purpose.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And the next question was, does acupuncture have rejuvenating benefits, and how does that work?
Absolutely. Almost by definition. So acupuncture and Chinese medicine, by the way, Chinese medicine is a whole body of medicine that includes a lot more than acupuncture, but acupuncture works to bring balance and harmonize the whole system of the body. And when a system when our organism is harmonized, we function optimally. And so, and that brings health really on all levels. But so we utilize the body's own resources to heal itself. And then more specifically, there is a form of treatment. I used to do this at Canyon Ranch a lot, called facial rejuvenation, which actually uses the needles themselves to clear, wrinkles, lines, things like that.
Great.
So.
Thank you for answering that. And another question was, do you treat only in person, or do you treat online as well?
Yeah, I work with people over the phone, in person, over video. Actually, more than half of my client population is remote, usually over the phone. And that's because really the healing when healing happens, it's not happening in person. It's happening within the person that's healing. So there's a lot of different ways to access that creative force in order to achieve greater health. So we work with processes like emotional freedom technique, like other spiritual psychology processes, breathing work, and other ways, forgiveness as a way of clearing underlying blocks and programming that might keep a person from having more of what they want and what they want to create.
Great. And one of the last questions that we'll go over today is there's somebody who was finding themselves to get irritated very quickly and start to get exhausted by that irritation. Do you have any tips for managing that stress?
Well, it's the exhaustion comes from the irritation, because irritation is really conflict with your environment. You could kind of simplify it down to that. There's more to it, but when we're in conflict within our environment, we get irritated, and that utilizes more energy, or it robs us of our resources that we want to use toward where we're really going, toward health, toward success, toward functioning in the world. So yes, there's a multi-step approach to finding the underlying cause for that irritation, and then clearing or finding more effective ways to manage your energy. And some of those include finding the underlying belief or approach, you could say, that has not been working, and find an approach that works more effectively to get to where you're really going.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah,
definitely. I think all of us have a little trouble finding the cause, and that's really a lot of what the work that you help people do as well. And
right.
Speaking of finding the cause, I mean, we had such a powerful interview, I feel like, so I hope you guys take the time to tune in next week, because one of the things that we had discussed is what role education plays in healing. And a quote that I just had to write down, I took pages of notes here, guys, was, you said, as we heal, we educate ourselves, and as we educate, we heal. Could you tell us just a little bit more about, without giving away all the podcast, a little bit more about how the education, healing relates to each other?
Absolutely. So, I'm trying to not to get too deep in this context, but we are here to know ourselves more deeply, and the process of being alive and being in a body really is a process of knowing, of learning who we are on a more deep level, and a more comprehensive level. And so when we find ourselves in a time of imbalance or disturbance, it's really us learning how to live our lives more effectively. On a physical level, if you get sick, what does the immune system do? The immune system starts to work and find a way to learn what that organism is and how to deal with it more effectively, and then get beyond it. And then after it's through that process, it's usually stronger and more experienced because of the process. Now it's a more efficient, usually, system. Well, that happens on other levels too. So when illness or dysfunction comes in, as long as we take an approach of seeking to understand the whole system and who you are within that system, and not use that illness as an identifier, like to get caught up in the identity of yourself as a diagnosis, then the illness becomes only a stepping stone on your way toward a life of meaning, purpose, success, fulfillment, and freedom, really.
Great. Thank you so much for going into that. Again, I think that's such a powerful concept. And I see we have had a few wellness practitioners who have joined in today to watch the live. For you guys, if you didn't get the whole enchilada here, make sure that you check it out over the next 24 hours. This video will also be posted to our YouTube. Danielle, thank you so much for doing the podcast and answering.
It's been such a pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you guys for listening. Make sure that you go ahead and check out the podcast. We also have our Pure Barre podcast, which is launching live today. So go ahead and check the link in bio. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you soon.